Hi everyone, this is Dr. Kirk Prine again, and welcome to our series about mindset is in the body, not just the brain. I want to share another nugget, and part of sharing these stories are clearly to prepare people who are becoming body story life coaches, or for those of you who are healers, to kind of give you adjunct ideas to feed into your work. But more importantly, it's for everybody to actually take some of these nuggets and reflect on how they might be helpful to you in your own healing journey. One of my teachers along the way, who understood that mindset was in the body and not just the brain, was a woman named Candice Pert, Dr. Candice Pert. Candice Pert was a neuroscientist, and I met her early in the AIDS epidemic years, where she was often a keynote speaker in many events around healing, because her understanding about how the mind-body connection worked as from a scientific point of view. She was someone who discovered that our brains actually have a neuroreceptor in it, an opiate receptor, so that wiring that we've talked about in some of the other videos, that wiring of opiate, of bliss, of joy, of pleasure, there is a link for that in the brain as well as in the pathways of the body. So when we think and when we feel and when we behave in ways that express joy, that releases these endorphins, releases kind of these painkillers, these opiate receptors are locked into, and it reduces some of the pain or the inflammation or some of the ailments that we feel. And so her work was very pioneering, and I'm very grateful for her. But one of the things that I also know about Candice Pert recently, and she died a few years ago, but that she was a feminist, she was a peace activist, and as the pioneering scientist that she was in brain and body connection and in neuroscience and spirituality, that she was often way ahead of many other people, and oftentimes didn't get credited for the things and accomplishments that she had achieved. So I want to talk to you about a story that has to do with body story work, and it has also to do with linking one of the teachers that I want to honor, which is just simply Candice Pert, among many teachers who have kind of inspired this work that we call body story work, from very different angles. But one of the things that I know is that word betrayal. I think we've all experienced it at one time or another, and we'll probably experience it until the end of our lives. Betrayal may simply be, growing older and feeling betrayed by our bodies at times. Maybe that, we're in an accident, we feel betrayed. We're in some kind of tragedy, we feel betrayed. Certainly in the culture in which we live, many people are feeling betrayed all the time because of their sexuality, their gender, their race, their religion, their economic status, all of those things. They're feeling betrayed by the very things that should have held them up. And betrayal is a deep wound, I think, in the psyche of our country and our world, that there's a lot of work to do. And for most of us, betrayal started when we were kids. So as little boys or girls or trans people, kind of figuring out who and what we are, not getting some of the things that we needed oftentimes gets locked into the body and becomes a sense of betrayal. So the more that betrayal can be neutralized, the less you're going to create out of betrayal to get something back that looks like betrayal. So hope you're following what I'm saying. So I want to tell you another story. And as I'm honoring teachers, you know, it's only fitting. Here's Candice Pert, and you know, I'm sure, you know, though I never talked to her about it, but on stage she often talked about some of the ways in which, as a woman, she felt betrayed, and as a scientist, as a woman, she felt betrayed, and yet she was a very powerful voice, an advocate for healing and understanding. Then in one of the earlier videos, I talked about Ron Roth, the mystic, who I did a number of years of healing work with, and learned many things about healing. And he told a story, a Jesus story. And again, I don't care if you believe or don't believe about the stories, but the richness is that body story work has been around before I ever came along. You know, there are many people who intuitively have put together that we're one unit, the consciousness is in the body. And certainly this Jesus story is one of those as we think about the word betrayal. But before I tell you this story, I want you to pause for a moment and just say to yourself, betrayal, betrayal, betrayal. Where does that land in your body? Where do you feel it in your body? What images come to mind? Because we all have stories about betrayal, and again, the more those are neutralized, the less we're creating out of it, so that we get back more our heart's desires. So that's the essence of body story work. So this story is, and Ron Roth highlighted in the Jesus story, was simply about Peter and Jesus. And you know, on the night in which, and the word is used a lot within, you know, church settings, but on the night in which he was betrayed. So Jesus basically said, you know, Peter, you're gonna deny me 3 times. He said, oh no, I'm not gonna do that. And then, you know, here Judas came and he betrayed him by a kiss, and that moment of betrayal became real for Peter, where he said and denied Jesus 3 times and said, I don't know him. I don't know this man. And they kept saying, he's one of the followers. No, I don't know him. So I can only imagine, even just from a story, whether it's true or not, of being in love and care and following the teachings of someone, and just admiring and being inspired by them, and then 3 times, because your life is threatened, you deny them. I can only imagine what Peter might have felt in that betrayal each time he said that. The interesting thing is, at the time in which Jesus was telling Peter about this betrayal, it says that Jesus and his disciples were hanging around a charcoal fire. So I have all these twigs here to kind of think about. So there's this fire burning. When you smell a fire, many of you have been around campfires, you smell the fire, that essence of the smoke, of the different kinds of burning wood. So he and his disciples were cooking food, where Jesus tells Peter, this is it. This is what's going to happen. And then they go to what's called the Last Supper. But it was around that charcoal fire. And in the passages of the Christian texts that talk about the charcoal fire, there are only 2 charcoal fires ever written about. So I think that's pretty curious that the writers made sure that this charcoal fire where they all met together and were cooking food, and Jesus is telling about the denial or the betrayal that was going to happen. And then his death, his resurrection, Jesus is back, and they're sitting around again with Jesus around a charcoal fire. So as a body story life coach, I'm helping people all the time experience and detoxify the experiences that they have that have wounded them, while breaking the contract. And in this sense, the contract was something around betrayal. And in that breaking of the contract, then a new experience can happen. So bringing you back to the story. So this second round of sitting around the fire, where Peter was and Jesus was, Jesus simply said to Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter said, "Well, of course I love you." And Peter, "Do you love me?" "Well, Master, of course I love you." "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, of course I love you." And each time Jesus said, "Go feed my sheep. Go tend to my flock." Think about it. 3 times the denial. 3 times Jesus around in the same environment that the wound happened was asking Peter to reclaim himself of, "Yes, I love you." So he did his completion work with Jesus by saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you," facilitated by, in my mind, a master body story coach that Jesus was at that moment in facilitating that healing. All of us have felt betrayed at times, and all of us will feel betrayed. And the nugget that I give you today, and thinking about, our beloved Candice Pert and how she may have felt betrayed as this shining star. And we're going to send you actually a copy of her book if you join us for our 4-day experience together. But Molecules of Emotion, where she really talks about that wiring between brain, body, consciousness, that happens through our emotions. And the emotion of betrayal, if we can neutralize that emotion, then we can create more of our heart's desires. So I hope this juicy story reminds you that, one, we can all move from our wounds into our healing, and to really honor the people in our lives, as I'm using these videos to honor all of the teachers who have fed me to help bring about and channel through some of the work that we call body story work. So may this be another juicy nugget for you as you set yourself free